I picked up the auto harp, which I don't play this thing, but I have it lying around my living room because it looks good. But I picked it up one day and I just played these 4 chords, and it just seemed to kind of, to me, to capture the kind of the beautiful sadness of what was happening at the time, and also when I played it over and over on my mandola, which is the sound that you hear when the song starts in the film. I could just see people drowning in the water. So yeah, so it has that kind of tragic kind of sound. I'm sure you'll get what I mean. It's a little out of tune. G minor to D minor. Goes to F. Into A minor. Growing up, my brothers and I heard the story of our great-grandparents many times. How Mariano and Elizabeth were on their honeymoon when they were shipwrecked on Great Barrier Island, and how they were tossed into the sea at midnight, completely dark, and how they were searching for each other. And because we kind of grew up with the story, it kind of took on mythical proportions for us, particularly for me, this image of my great-grandfather searching for Elizabeth. It was kind of like a legend to me. There was something very beautiful about it.
Phil and I have been talking about making movies for as long as I can remember, I think, for a long time. And one of the stories that we really wanted to tell is the story of our great-grandparents, who obviously were shipwrecked on the Great Barrier Island. It's part of our heritage, I guess, and it's just a jolly good story.
Over the year that we worked on A Very Nice Honeymoon, through the various stages, you know, there were some other amazing events. Finding Gina Keel.
I've known Phil and Jeff since I was really little, and so they were looking for someone to draw for The Very Nice Honeymoon, and they knew me, so they thought of me, and actually Phil was living across the road.
Now, I'd heard about Jeff Duncan. I'd heard that he was a bit of a legend, and but I hadn't worked with him. I'd met him once or twice, and I was talking to my brother Jeff about, you know, what do we do with regard recording this music, and so he hopped on the phone, and I phoned up Jeff Duncan, told him the story, and immediately I'm just listening to it on the other end of the phone. I've got my brother Jeff there talking to Jeff Duncan, and I'm hearing kind of second hand what Jeff Duncan is saying, and he's saying piano, cello, violin, mandolin, accordion. These are the instruments that I've been kind of thinking of and hearing.
Phil had some great material that he'd written with a view to using some of it as part of the score, and I sort of felt like that was an awesome idea because it meant that the director already liked the music, and it also meant that the time constraints weren't such an issue. We had some material to start with. So what I then set about doing was rearranging some of those themes to appear through the score in different contexts, like reharmonising it so that it was minor and dark and sombre for the beginning, and then changing it so that it was brighter for the outro song, which was the original piece for that theme, which was in a major key, and it sounded nice and romantic and bright and happy. So yeah, working with Phil's material and then developing things from there just kept everything moving in terms of our schedule, and as I say, it meant the director loved the music before we'd really written it, because he'd already kind of written it, so that worked well, I think. I didn't have a piano, so I rang up a friend of mine and who works in a piano shop, and he very kindly, well, we were going to rent one, and he very kindly just said, well, why don't you use it and give us a plug on the credit, you know, which was cool. So thanks, Len, that was really good. And he delivered that, or his lackeys delivered that from a truck, and we trucked it in and we mic'd it up and used it, and it was kind of perfect. The dreadful factor was just right on. It wasn't quite unusably dreadful, but it was fairly dreadful, and it was cool because we wanted some dread in there, you know.
They were married within a month or 6 weeks. Of course, they came out wrecked on the wire wrapper. Mother didn't like talking about it. It's upset her a lot. Oh, well, I don't like repeating things that were said because, you know, it shouldn't have happened, really.
So we've got 5 generations telling the same story, and there are a couple of things. One is how the story was the same, so basically the story hasn't changed, and the other thing is how much the story has changed, and that different people had different versions of the story, which was kind of interesting.
What attracted me about what eventually became called A Very Nice Honeymoon was the idea, in its own right it's a great story, but I also like the idea that we have family stories that we all know, but we never know exactly.
When I first watched the cut of A Very Nice Honeymoon, the thing that struck me was that we were dealing with reinforcing a really emotional story, but although it's true, it is dramatic, and my first thoughts were we want to make it feel authentic, but we also want to make the audience feel that they're actually living through bits of it.
My great-grandmother Elizabeth died in 1960, which was about 3 months before I was born, so I didn't actually get to meet her. But my mother knew her well. She remembers her well, of course, and remembers her telling the story. And my mum's got drama experience. She's done many years of stage work and acting and that kind of thing. So I just thought it would be perfect idea to set up the cameras and to get my mum to listen to the audio of Elizabeth and to act out her mannerisms. Which we did, and which actually proved really, really useful, really helpful.
It was 12:30 when she gave a bump, but I never heard it because I was sound asleep. I'm a good sleeper. Even now, you see. My husband said, "Hurry up," and I said, "What for?" He said, "Hurry up," and he started like that on the side. And I said, "Well, I told you that before it happened." I said, "Didn't I tell you that we won't see Auckland?" He said, "Shh, quick, no time." Before I took her my bit of heavy clothes, and she was banging the side. But we don't know where it was, you see, it was dark.
We found this tape that had actually been in the family for a while, and it was of Elizabeth telling the story. It was recorded in 1950 something or other. And there was another tape as well of her daughter Messi also telling her story, and including that was the wreck. And so the story, the film that we were making evolved from being the kind of thing that you might expect, which is an actor drama animated, to a documentation, which is what we do.
There's something also when we started going down the documentation track that excited me, and that was like the structure of it, that we could actually have 5 generations of the family telling the story. It was almost like, to me, it was almost, I don't know why, but it was almost like this kind of spinal column. There were bits, there was this kind of thread, this continuity between one of the great-great-grandchildren telling the story in a classroom right now, which he actually did. We actually took the crew into the classroom to film and record all of that. We flew my uncle, my mother's brother, down from Auckland, that's Uncle John, and to get them into the studio and get them talking for a whole morning about things that they could remember. And it was, they got so excited just kind of remembering this, you remember that, you remember this, the smell of the coffee, you know.
So you see,
that's the real story.
Yeah, that's all right, but I was half right.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
absolutely half right. Yes.
What we wanted to do was to not make it look 3D. So one thing that we did was we toon rendered it, which means it's very flat. So we've got a 3D object, and the camera's navigating around this 3D space, but it's flattened. So, and there's a line that's drawn around the edges.
At one point, Isaac, my 12-year-old, and I hopped in the car with our video cameras and headed north up to Auckland, and then on the ferry to Great Barrier Island. Then we hopped on another little boat the following day and went up to this remote, desolate place where the boat had hit the cliff way back in 1893. And yeah, it was a bit of a pilgrimage to me. I hadn't been there before, and I was unprepared for the emotion that I felt when I stepped onto the rock that the boat hit and looked down into the water at this little cove where 131 or so people had drowned.
You take anyone off the street and you talk to them somewhere, if you dig deep enough, they've got an amazing story to tell.
I see the moon, I watch it rising, I see the stars in their heaven.
There's a million stories, and we'd like to tell as many as we can.
I hear you breathing, I love the life we've been given. Oh, but I can see the sunlight dancing on your face. I can see you running so free. And when this night is over,